I just want people to know that if it's in your heart to help, find a way to do it. There's a lot of people out here that are in need. There's a lot of people that are out here hurting. The most valuable thing you can give to anybody is your time.
Hello, and welcome to Keyboard. I'm your host, Tembi and Thembi. Call me either. I love them both. I'm a theater artist, educator, instructional designer, and tech enthusiast who loves to talk to interesting people about their journeys in arts, education, and technology. On this episode of Keyboard, I have the privilege of speaking with JT Dorsey of the JT Dorsey Foundation, a nonprofit in Pennsylvania, United States, that's dedicated to the development of athletic, academic, and character skills in young people. We touch on how the beautiful game of soccer, or football for my non-U.S. listeners, found its way into his heart, what being a professional soccer player taught him about life, how the JT Dorsey Foundation has evolved over the years, and so much more. Stay with me. JT Dorsey is next. Welcome, JT Dorsey.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm very happy to have you. I'm glad I get to talk to you today.
Yes, I'm excited to talk to you as well.
All right, so let's just jump in. Let's start with soccer. Tell me, how did soccer make its way into your life?
It was probably more so by accident, to be honest. In elementary school, field day, apparently I was fast, and and the teacher said, "Hey, you should come out for our soccer team."
Did you know you were fast? You said apparently.
I mean, I think so. We used
Out.
to, yeah. I mean, we used to race all the time in the neighborhood, like, because where I grew up, it was like one of the things was who's the fastest person in the neighborhood. So we used to just run all day. So field day was just a place to showcase it, I guess, outside, with other people in the school, not just the people in my neighborhood. So took
Can
the
I ask
paper
you?
home.
Can I ask you a
Yeah.
quick question about that? When you say people at your school versus the people in your neighborhood,
Hmm.
this is a question I have for you. Did you go to school in your neighborhood, or were you bused out of your neighborhood?
Yeah. So I went to school with my neighborhood folks, but Coatesville itself is a pretty diverse community.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was bused to the school, but you could have people from all kinds of walks of life at the school.
So people were so people were bused from all over. But do you feel like I'm only asking this for context, right, of the
Hmm.
time that you grew up in, not necessarily be like, how old are you, JT? But
Yeah, yeah.
I like to remind people that there are those of us who are Gen Xers, who are in our 40s and 50s, who were part of a desegregation program via busing. I certainly was, but I was curious if you were bused. I was bused away from my community into what had been prior to that a white community
Yeah.
to integrate those schools, all of three of my schools.
Yeah, so it wasn't part of
It
something
wasn't
like
that.
that.
Okay.
No, it's
Okay.
just like we lived in the apartment complex, uh, and then one of my better friends, his neighbor was Amish. So that's
Oh, okay.
that's how big our school district was.
I
And
see.
so when you think about that, like you got people from all shades, all different backgrounds.
Right. That's interesting. So it just
Yeah.
pulled from such a wide
Hmm.
geographical area that you just got a
Yeah.
whole bunch of you. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah.
to throw you. I was just very curious about that. Sorry. So
Yeah.
yes, apparently you were fast.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took the paper home and I said, "Hey, Mom, someone said I should try out for this thing." And she was like, "Okay." So she took me, and if she was here to tell us today, she had already kind of scheduled her speech for me not making the recreational team.
Aw.
Although they take everyone, right? So
But she was ready just in case to tell
she,
you what was the
she was ready.
speech.
I don't know,
You'll get them
but
next
like
time,
it,
son.
it was it was kind of like we don't play this sport, but it's something that you're interested in. So we'll go and try it. I won't tell you no.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not traditionally something that, we play. So she was kind of more in that it may be an uncomfortable space for me. I didn't have the equipment. How was I going to be successful? So I went, tried out, and, she literally tried to talk the guy out of keeping me. I think because it was like not close to our house, I think she just didn't feel like driving out there. So she's like, "You sure he made the team?"
He's
That
like,
that
yeah.
that kid right there. And he's like, "Yeah," but he said, he's athletic and he fit in, with making friends, and he worked hard. So those are the things that he was looking for. It wasn't, he understood his job was to teach me how to play the game and teach how those other kids there how to play the game, even though some of them had played for him previously and I was coming in brand new. So, he wasn't looking for talent at that level necessarily. He was just looking forward to kids who can come into that environment and be coachable and work hard and be good examples to the others.
Awesome. And so that's how you connected with soccer. So education is the other piece of the work that you do. How you've said in the past that you've always wanted to be an educator, but how did you even decide this for yourself? When do you remember deciding that that's what you wanted to do?
I don't know exactly when. I just know that whether it was when we were at the basketball court or other places, that I was always trying to help teach people skills and work alongside of that. I think sometimes part of me says that I wanted to be in the education world because it was a way to connect with my dad a little bit. My dad is a teacher by trade. And since I didn't have a lot of connection with him, I don't know if part of me wanted to find a connection in some way and do teaching and education. I also know that the families of my friends that I spent a lot of time with, many, if not both of the parents were in education, or at least one of them. I know my good friend Theron, like his mom, and I met him in kindergarten. His mom was a teacher. She was actually our kindergarten teacher, and Theron and I have been friends ever since. But his mom was like a great role model. And then as he and I became better friends, I was at their house a lot, and hanging out with him. One of my good friends, his mom was in education, and also also another one of my good friends. His dad was a principal, and his mom was a college professor. So I was always around all these people who were involved in education a lot, and I like learning, and I also like sharing what I learn with other people. So I think it just kind of morphed into that. But I do think maybe a piece of that was to just be connected to my father a little bit because I know he was in education, and so was my half brother. So my dad's son ended up being an educator for a long time as well. So maybe it was just kind of in our blood and in our genes.
Did you get the sense of fulfillment and connection that you were looking for at some point?
Um, Off and on,
Hmm.
it was a bit of a rough road. Um, I actually didn't connect with my brother until much later in life when I was an adult. And then I think once he and I became connected, then the connection to my father became a little bit more connected, I guess, for lack of better words. And my brother was and his wife were a big piece of trying to bring that together because he had not known that he had a brother for a long time because and sometimes in our communities, and especially in those times growing up,
People they
it
don't talk.
wasn't.
Yeah. They
Yeah, they
don't
don't talk
tell
about
you what's going
that.
on. Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. That's so interesting. And it's it's interesting to me that you talk about a desire you had to connect maybe under the surface somewhere, right? But just how that became so much of what you do and how much of a father figure you are to so many kids. And
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, when we go after this kind of work, it is meant to demonstrate something in a community and send a message of the importance of that connection to fathers and connections to men. So I really admire you for becoming, and I know you are a father, but just being being that presence in the community for your own child and so many people who needed it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful full circle, even if you didn't necessarily get all the fulfillment you were looking for your own inner child.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I mean, a lot of it does help with the principles and the core values of the why behind the foundation. And when we talk to the people that work within the foundations, we talk a lot about how myself, along with thousands, maybe millions of other kids who were searching for that connection on that Saturday when you wanted to spend time and you couldn't spend time. Uh, Maybe you were promised something that didn't happen for whatever reason. We always try and tell people like be there when you say you're going to be there, and that's extremely important. And there are times when you can't be there, and that's okay. You just have to communicate that because having a child sit there in the unknown is really, really tough. And we don't want our kids to feel that way.
That's really powerful. You talk about the why of the JT Dorsey Foundation. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Now, you founded the organization in 2007, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so there was obviously a core philosophy that upholds the nonprofit that's award winning at this point, almost 20 years in. What is that core philosophy? And I'm curious if it's changed over time since you founded it.
Yeah, so it originally kind of started with doing what's best for kids, and it's changed to creating change through the beautiful game. So soccer is called the beautiful game to many people who play it or are around it. And what we noticed was we were doing things to create change in children's lives and lives of our youth, and creating change within the community. And then we're like, and we're doing it through soccer. So, but some of those, core things were just trying to be consistent and trying to be there. One of the things we always talk about is because a lot of people reach out to us like, "Hey, can we partner? Can you come here and do something with us or for us or whatever?" And we try and say that like, how long do you want this to go? Because like we want to be an organization that people can count on and look forward to, and it's going to be there when we say it's going to be there. So, we really talk about, the sustainability and not being in a place where you overpromise and underdeliver, because that is severely impactful for youth, and we didn't want to do that. So, wherever we go, wherever we decide to kind of quote unquote set up shop, we want to make sure that that's going to be there for a long period of time.
Can you talk about some of the cultural perceptions of soccer versus other sports in Pennsylvania's inner city communities? Now, I mean, you've talked about how what a wide swath of land that was drawn from for your schools growing up.
Right,
So
right.
I don't necessarily want to focus just on inner city communities. I know that
Mm,
that's you work with a lot of young people who are on free and reduced lunch
mm.
and in the inner city, but I suspect then you may work also with rural students.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
And suburban, maybe also.
so
Okay.
I mean, we try. I mean, soccer, the perception, and very much as my mom told me, is we don't really do this sport not as a African American sport. We were always kind of geared towards football or basketball. Maybe even baseball, um, and not really soccer because it wasn't. I don't know, it wasn't sexy to our people. Like it was like they didn't think there was, especially at that time and even somewhat now, they didn't really see people from our community making money in soccer. Um, so And even now, when we talk to people and we say, "Hey, we have MLS," and people are making a good living. I got friends that made really good living playing MLS, and doing that, and that's our domestic league. Like they, most people think that they are from some foreign country, and I'm like, no, there are some African American males, African American females that are playing in our domestic leagues, that are doing really, really well. And it changed the trajectory of their families and stuff like that. But it's not on TV, on the primetime TV. It's not marketed enough to kind of, our quote unquote community, that people don't, they see it as a good fundamental sport. And if you talk to a lot of people, you know, especially people of color, I played soccer when I was 8, 9. And then at 10, I moved into, I started only playing basketball, or I only started playing football. Um, so it is a good fundamental sport, because a lot of people tell people that either, you know, I wasn't the best basketball player. My jump shot was not really great. I wasn't going to the league, even though I thought I was, back when I was 11 or 12. But my footwork was really good based upon soccer. So I was always on the court, because they were like, "Yo, pick T, because he's in shape. He's gonna run all day, and his defense is all that, right?" So like,
Hmm. You
you
had your
know,
set of skills that was useful.
yeah. So so I think the misconception is that even though it's the world's game, it's not necessarily our game in the U.S. We try all the time to remind people, the Kobe Bryants of the world played soccer, the Tim Duncans, the Shaquille O'Neals, the Jason Tatums. Like, a lot of these players grew up playing soccer, and then they just happen to be really good at basketball.
So what do you find yourself having to do to get past those limiting beliefs, to get people excited about putting their kids in your programs?
For one, I mean, we are a soccer program, but we do a lot more than just soccer. So people will join our program, kind of for some of the other things, the caring coaches that are there consistently, the connections to the other community partners that we work with that, may provide, other opportunities that are connected to the program. We work with people who provide food for some of our families. We work with people who provide clothing. Um, we even had one of our girls who was in a home, because she wanted to stay, and her family were like, "No, we're moving to New York." And she was a little bit older. She's one of our older girls. She wanted to stay here because she loved her school and this and that. Her mom was like, "All right, you're 17, so you can stay here." And then we end up having to help her get into housing. So
Wow.
we try and provide a lot of other things, or connections to other things.
Hmm.
We always try and be, no more than a phone call or two away from being able to help people get the things that they need. So yeah, it's cool to come and kick soccer balls around, learn skills and stuff like that. But, if we're helping people with some of their basics, and then on top of that, in our future leaders program, we had probably 11 to 12 kids graduate this year, all going off to college. Some of them are first generational college students, but helping them with filling out the FAFSAs and all those things. So some of the families are like, "Yeah, it's cool that you're kicking soccer balls around, but what's even better is the fact that they're helping us with this, and
Wow.
not just teaching you how to play this game."
Okay, yeah, that's a strong selling point. I love that. I love that you developed that. I'm guessing through trial and error and just through
Mhm.
your vision. You talked a little bit about this, but I'd love to dig into it more. What are the features of schools that have the best readiness for your programs? Because you partner with existing schools. Do you turn away schools sometimes if you can see that they're not ready?
Yeah, if they don't have, you got to have a community champion or a group of community champions. So one of the schools that we've been at the longest, I think it's been about 15 years, it started with this principal, and Cheryl loved soccer. I was like, I'm a soccer head, but I feel like you're more of a soccer head than I am. And it starts with somebody who believes in that and really wants something good for their students. And she just said, I want soccer to be part of this culture here at the school. And she's not even the principal there anymore, but it's so part of the culture of the school that the teachers see value in a lot of the teachers are the coaches of the program. They see the value in the kids showing up differently in their classrooms because, by accident, they're like, hey, coach, I need help over here. And they're like, sorry, Mrs.
Miss
Kelly.
so and so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, the teachers and that's based on the leadership. So, when we talk to other schools, we're always trying to like determine like, is this person truly into making sure this sticks? Because, in the education world, when they're cutting programs and things like that, like these programs are the ones that they cut the fastest. And if someone's like, hey, no, we want to make sure that that doesn't happen, we'll help you collect the data. We'll set up a way for you to give out the surveys and do all those things. So if you can help us with that and not just provide us space and time for your children, then that tells us that you want this long term. So even though the principal that helped start it there 15 years ago, I mean, she hasn't been there in probably 8 years, maybe somewhere around in that. But the new principal, the assistant principal, the office staff, you know, and we go in and we just kind of like make, I think we do a good job of making people feel a part of something. So the maintenance person, is there and we make sure, that person gets a jersey, right? The office staff, when we have festivals and things like that, we make sure that they're a part of them. You know, we have the kids sign and make cards for all those people, because if the person in the office, and I'm thinking of two ladies in particular, Jody and Wendy, who like they're the gatekeepers to everything,
Hmm. That's that
and they
school
open,
office. That's
yep,
yeah. Yeah.
and they open the door to us,
Hmm.
and
They keep
like
the trains running,
they
and without them, yeah.
like they do so much, and that's appreciative.
Hmm.
We try and appreciate everyone, no matter how far up they are in the totem pole or how far down that they are. Every person has an important part in doing what we do. And that's why, we haven't just like kind of rolled out across the country because it's really hard to try and make sure that and those pieces are sustainable because we want it to continue on beyond us, right? We want it to be, it's been 15 years at that school. We want it to be another 15 years. And who knows if, myself or the current principal or the current vice principal are still going to be there. But if it's been established and been part of that community, that people will say, we can't have school without this, they're going to make sure that it goes on.
Yeah, you talked about planting your gardens where you live, not really trying to scale out before it's time. It sounds like your model is still in development, even though it's been around for a long time. Your longitudinal
Mm-hmm. Right,
data,
right.
you can't get it without time, right? You have to be able to really see over
Mm-hmm.
time. Kids whose siblings then come into programs after. What happens when you have kids in the same family who've gone through this program and have received these wraparound services, not only for their individual selves and families, but to be able to feel that sense of belonging that you talked about in their school culture is really, really valuable. And of course, as educators, we know those are the things that get kids to school more often, keep kids engaged,
Mm-hmm.
keep kids do focused and excited about school. So what I'd like to know in that context is what kinds of questions are the kids in your programs asking? They're now receiving these additional supports from you in situations where maybe there are things that are needed that they're not receiving. Like, what kinds of questions are they asking the coaches?
The biggest question that we get most of the time is, when are we going to get to play somebody else? Right?
Ha.
Because, when you're at a school, an existing school, it doesn't mean that every school in that district has it. It might only be that school.
Yeah.
So they love what we do. They love the connections. They love you know, I would say the parents and guardians love the depth of service. The kids want to play other people. They want to compete. The hard part is, without the funding and the consistent funding of that, finances and transportation are the two biggest hurdles. So because, we do it at a school and the kids may or may not need a uniform on a consistent basis to play in that gymnasium, because maybe there's no outdoor space for them to play in. So they play against each other a lot. And we have a lot of different games and activities and things that they can do. But they always go, when do we get to play somebody else? And it's a hard thing to explain to them that okay, to put you on a bus and get that school bus to take you over to this other school to play them, that is at least $500. You know what I
Right,
mean? So
right.
we want them
Yeah.
to play other people, but we also go, well, what could we do with $500?
Yeah.
What things could we give them, whether it's a healthy snack or access to, more soccer equipment and those types of things that help them do the daily thing. They're always asking, how do we get this level of competition?
That's interesting. It sounds to me though like they may be asking you all for that, and maybe that's not your focus because you want to make sure the program is being sustained in the school. But
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like if they have gotten to the point where they're asking this question about competitiveness and wanting to lift their heads up and look outside of their school, it means that their needs are met. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting way to arrive to your data point still, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to feel like, well, yeah, sure, we're not able to take them out into tournaments and leagues and all of that, and because
Mm-hmm.
not only do you have to pay for them to get there, but the other schools have to have it in place as well. So of course they don't
Right,
understand that
right,
as young
right,
people, but it is interesting to me to hear you say that because I feel like, okay, that means Maslow's hierarchy of needs is met here,
right,
right? So
right,
that's a
right,
win. A
right,
win is
right.
a win.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
You
for
know?
sure. Yeah, guy, we don't mind the
Yeah.
question, and we think creatively about how to make those things happen.
Hmm.
So we'll do a lot of festivals and stuff like that where we can get some of our other programs together at one time. So it may just be a 1 day festival, right? Where hey, you've had 8 to 10 weeks of your regular kind of scheduled programming, maybe even 12 weeks, but there's this culminating event, right? And you got to make sure your grades are good. You got to make sure your behavior is good and you've shown good discipline and all those things. You've signed up. Now make sure you show up. And your attendance needs to be at least this to be able to participate in that. So we found the support from people and some of our sponsors and partners that allow us to create these festival type events where they get to go and play. And, one in particular, the school district kind of got behind us. And, we realized that we couldn't do it on a weekend. We had to do it during the week when the kids were in school. Again, the principles of they've allowed the kids to come out of class, get changed, get on the bus, you know what I mean, to get over to the field. And they even took it one step further where they said they live streamed the event.
Oh,
So, because
wow.
during the
I love
day, yeah,
that.
during the day, they couldn't allow just people on the
Parents and
on campus,
community
right?
members.
Because
Yeah.
during the
Hmm.
school day, they would have had to do a background check on everybody, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a
all that.
major
Yeah,
liability
for
issue.
sure.
Yeah.
So they said
Hmm.
they knew how many parents wanted to see their kids play, that they live streamed the whole thing for the district. And some parents watched, and it was pretty cool.
That's smart.
So, it was a fun day, but
Hmm.
we always try and think, outside the box on how we can keep people engaged, but also meet the needs and the desires of the kids. So, other organizations like ours, again, will connect with them to run festivals and stuff like that, where
Hmm.
It's a bit of a easier lift to do this one day thing than it is to try and run a weekly schedule where
Like a whole league or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
A
yeah,
whole,
yeah.
yeah, that's a lot of logistics, a
Hmm.
lot of money.
Right,
And
right.
and then when you're dealing with buses, the challenge with buses, I know, is always that depending on what bus companies you have in your region,
Hmm.
they're transporting kids to and from schools. Multiple schools, buses typically will be picking up different groups of kids throughout the course of the day. So it's like you also have to have access to buses that are available,
Hmm.
that aren't carting kids to and from school and after school programs. And then you think about, okay, there might be private bus companies, but they're just prohibitively expensive most of the time. So
Hmm.
I love that you all are thinking outside the box. And speaking of thinking outside of the box, do you have a vision for a new educational paradigm? You partner with schools, you infuse your programming into the existing industrial model of education. But I wonder, do you envision a whole new model that is completely organically, intrinsically sports based or sports infused,
Yeah,
I should say?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say kind of wellness infused because, there's a level of wellness that we want the kids to appreciate and to love that, whenever they're done shooting baskets, kicking soccer balls, serving, doing whatever they're doing in that sport, that they continue to want to be healthy and live a healthy lifestyle. One of the things, we know is when they take recess and they take the arts and they pull all that stuff out of school, that behavior escalates. So we'd love to have a school where children can come and get educated and have their sports component built within their day. And if you're running the school that maybe goes a little bit longer throughout the day with leverage of after school money and some other things, that you can be creative on what the schedule looks like. So at our one school where we do a before school program, when those kids come and they run and they get the what I call the willies out, they go into the classroom and they sit and they're attentive. So imagine if kids could do that, be more attentive at school, stay out of the office, stay out of disciplinary issues, get the education that they need, and then if there's a component for them that's in the before school thing or throughout the day thing is more of like recreational component, and then if you had a skills based component for children who might be a little bit more serious about participating, being really good at soccer or any of that, that they could stay after school and have really good coaches and mentors that were able to, there's a good homework help activity, tutoring thing that's happening after school, a food component, so they can be fed properly, and then to be able to participate in their sport afterwards without the I need to run over here to be part of this, and because I can't tell you how many hours people lose in just the commute of trying to
Huh.
get their kids to other programming. So it'd be lovely to have a school that is mixed with the wellness activities and components. And we talk to a lot of PE teachers, and we don't want them in a place where they're like, hey, I've got PE class in this one gym and I got to do it with 40 kids.
Right.
Imagine if they could do it with 20 kids,
Hmm.
the impact that they could have, and setting seeds for these kids to have additional wellness activities. Because if it was just intertwined throughout the whole day and just part of the, had a more of an impact on the community, and then you take that and you add arts programs that just continue to foster creativity, and you build that all together. I mean, I'd love to send my daughter there.
Yeah, sounds pretty amazing. I'm going back to
Yeah.
school so I can go to this
Mm.
school.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's a really beautiful vision. And we have to acknowledge what the research reflects and what's certainly an issue now that I'd love to find out from you. You talked about the kids wanting to compete more, but what about the changes that some people are like, oh, that's a COVID baby, right? Like the whole
Hmm.
idea of like since 2020, the pieces that young people were missing in their social emotional development, the pieces they were missing just in connection, the isolation that everybody experienced, and for them in particular, the drop in instruction, the shift in instruction from the teacher based model to a parent based model, still not a student based model,
Right.
still, but from educator to parent, who 9 times out of 10 is not a professional educator, doesn't have the training to teach their child, is now thrust into that position, right? So now you've got kids coming through programs having experienced that at some formative points in their lives. Have you found that that's had an impact on how your kids engage with your programming?
A little bit. They're coming through with different levels of experience. The U.S. Soccer Foundation helped use and develop our soccer curriculum that uses social emotional learning components, and they're woven within the program. So we do see kids who engage in that, differently based on the experiences and things that they've been through with education and how they were taught. But we also find that if we can get to them on those things and teach them those, components that go within that they find ways to be engaged no matter how learning shows up. So, when you start looking at, some of those self-regulation skills and self-monitoring skills and those types of things, when they show up, no matter what's happening, they're able to kind of regulate and be a part.
It's fantastic. What do people sometimes misunderstand about the role that the JT Dorsey Foundation plays in the lives of kids and their families?
So they misunderstand that we're not just about soccer because they're so used to so many sports based programs only being about the wins and losses. But we tell people a lot of times the win is what's important now and not always what the score is. So I think the misconception for most people is that we only do soccer. And I think because people go, oh, well, you're a former professional player, so you only want to make other professionals, right? And I'm
Hmm.
like,
That's not it
no,
at all.
right. I just happened to be fortunate enough to get picked, because I can, at that time when I got chosen, like I could probably name off at least five other people that could be considered better than me. But I think, some of the things that helped me get quote unquote picked was the character things that I had. He's not going to come in here and be a disruption to our team, right?
Hmm.
He's gonna help us grow. He's gonna help us sort of control the locker room. He's gonna make sure that when we showed up in the community, that we can walk away with a good presence. And people going, man, that JT Dorsey, he's a good guy, right? He's a good person. Oh, and he happens to be kind of smart too, and he's also kind of athletic. So like, but any partnership, for the most part, any experience and stuff that I had is mostly because people thought that I deserved it because I was a good person.
And I love that because that's what you're cultivating in your students and your programs, which is wonderful. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for individuals or organizations who want to partner with schools to provide youth development, even if they're not sports based? Are there some things that you've picked up where you're like, make sure you do this, make sure you don't do that?
Just be transparent in your intentions. Just be open and honest about why you're there. I think that's the most important thing. Some people, they come in and they want to do certain things, which is okay, but say that, right? We have some tough conversations with some other organizations of, are you just trying to come here for the photo op? And if you are, just say that, right? Like, but
Right.
if you're truly trying to
Yeah.
help, like, say you're truly trying to help, and let's get after it, and how we really try and help. Like, let's
Hmm.
be transparent about that. But if you want to kind of come, a certain amount of money that you want to give, or you got these pieces of equipment that you want to give, and you want to post on your social media or whatever that we did this. This is great. Like, just say that, right? And then I'll tell you whether you can be on board or not. because most of the time our kids can tell us whether or not people are there with the right intentions.
Isn't
So,
it that true? That's the truth. That is the
mhm.
truth. They know.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
can see through all that. That's so true.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
100%.
So
So,
being transparent about your goals with your
mhm.
programming, the best way.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the founder and the executive director of the JT Dorsey Foundation, which
Mhm.
is coming up to 20 years old soon. It's almost it's almost a grown
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but then how do you engage with your self-care? How do you manage that in
Mhm.
still being there and even evolving your vision, evolving your practices, leading your people, watching the kids grow through the programs? What about you?
Um, Personally, I would say I had to learn to do more self care. I've had to learn to manage schedule because with so many children and families that you're servicing and so many needs, you can do stuff all day. You can probably do stuff for 24 hours. So I love to listen to music. I love to read. Reading is fun. I didn't like to read when I was actually told to read when I was in school. uh, but reading is, and maybe it's the quietness that comes with reading is is good. And I like to just very much a girl dad, so I like to spend time with my daughter and just talk to her and listen to her. Sometimes it gets silly,
Hmm.
sometimes it gets serious, but a lot of times it's just trying to take time to spend intentional time. And some of that will be around just sitting and being okay with just sitting. Music is a big thing for me because it's very soothing. It's very energetic and invigorating at times. I just think that it's so cool and so unique that like how many billions of songs are out there, and there's very few of them, if any of them, are exactly the same. Because even when you do a remake, right, it's still not the same
It's
thing.
different.
It's a
Yeah.
remake. Yeah, it's different.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That's awesome. How will you know when the work of the JT Dorsey Foundation is done?
I don't think it's ever going to be done, but I know that we've done a good job when the current people that are quote unquote in charge, myself in particular, can kind of sit back and observe. Then I'll know that we're really good. And when they tell me that they don't need me, that'd be pretty awesome.
Okay. All right, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
We just got deep. Let's lighten it up a little bit. Let's play a game of word association. It might still get deep. This is funny. I
All
always
right.
say
All
when
right.
I do this with people, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun. And then sometimes it still gets deep. So
Right. Right.
we'll see
Right.
what
Right.
happens.
Right.
I'm gonna say a word. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Coatesville.
I would say family.
Mm.
Coatesville is very like if you grew up in Coatesville and you loved Coatesville, like I
It
mean,
loved you back.
yeah, and I don't think I had. I mean, like I knew I had a lot of cousins, but like I don't think like it was like a thing where like everybody's like, "Yo, we're cousins, right?" And it's like, "Are we though?" Like, I feel like
Play cousins.
I feel like your mom was just really good friends with my mom, and like they hung out all the time. So then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
like
they're
we're
not.
related.
Yeah, they're not sisters,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
So
yeah, that's how we do it.
yeah,
It's a
so
tight
Coatesville,
community.
yeah, Coatesville is really community and family
Okay.
based. So when you say that, I think family.
Okay. So now I'm going to say community. What do you think when I
Mhm.
say community?
I would say the word that probably comes to me is embrace because we like to embrace communities. I mean, and be part of them. So when you talked about, the inner city stuff, we started doing some programming in rural communities. I mean, kids who literally are on farms,
Hmm.
and you would think you would think that Coach JT is out here doing a program in this community that there's no way they pull it off. But you got these kids that are coming up, hugging you, high fiving you, and and maybe it's changing because maybe they've only seen the part of the negativity of what can be considered of the African American male, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Coach JT is not like that, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
authentic. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge that
so
exposure to who you are as a person, as a man, right?
right.
And what's interesting, and I'm sure you know this as an educator, is that there are a lot more similarities than not with
Mm-hmm.
situations in very rural areas and in very urban areas. Those ends of the spectrum have a lot of similar economic and cultural um, gems, roses, but also challenges. And I think, you know, obviously that's a whole other conversation about why those groups would be kept from uniting
Mm-hmm.
against common
Right.
forces, but yeah, I think that's something that when it seems that whenever they get to discover each other as young people, they are thrilled with how they can make connections and learn about each other. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad you're expanding more out into those rural areas because I think it does go back to what you said about the kids saying, well, can we play other people? Now you've got even more different kinds of groups who you can mix in with your kids, even if it's once in a while for culminating events. So
Yeah, for sure.
Loyola.
Oh,
I should say
wow.
goucher. That should be my next word, but I'm gonna
Oh, yeah.
Loyola.
I'd say it was a new beginning for me. So when I think about that, it was when I got to the start of that I could be more than just an athlete, that I could be a really kind of refined individual. Where I learned some professional things, and I had my core friends back home, but I met maybe some deeper brothers in the sense of you're living together in an apartment. You know what I mean? And like you get to know each other. And I was fortunate to live with some really great individuals that kind of helped shape me moving into my life and the decisions that I made to go forward as a professional, and not just like a professional athlete, but like a professional person. So that's why I would think it was like a new beginning for me. And college taught me a lot of new things and how I should take certain things seriously and be more disciplined when it comes to. So I remember a teacher saying to me, she told me in college I was really smart. And I didn't really believe that I was actually smart. I thought I was like good enough to go on, but I felt like I was witty, but I didn't think I was smart. Like she was like, no, you have a good brain. Like you should use that, not just your athleticism.
Did you feel like people were focusing a lot of attention on the athleticism, and that's kind of what led you to believe that that was your biggest asset?
Yeah, because Coatesville at that point it was all you got clout based on what sport you played.
So social capital was more important.
Mm.
Okay, that makes sense. So I
Yes,
can see where, as a young person, you'd believe that.
yeah. So it was
Yeah.
like who was the best basketball player?
Mm-hmm.
Who was the fastest in the neighborhood? Who was the best at football? Who was the best soccer player? I mean, so many people like Philly slang, and being a little bit outside of Philly. I was soccer ball to so many people.
Okay.
Like it was like, oh, that's the bull that plays soccer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah. So that was you were popular for
yeah,
that. So, and as an
yeah,
adolescent, that's really all you care about is social acceptance. And that's what's
for
interesting. It's like
sure.
the people, when they're working with young people, it's like that social acceptance piece is 90% of an adolescent's needs and desires once you've fed them and clothed them. So, yeah, I can see where that was at the forefront. And it does take people to break through that and say, okay, you've got that locked in. Now let's talk about the other assets you have and how you can believe in yourself to make this transition into adulthood. And,
Yeah.
even though we know that college isn't necessarily for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we figure out how to help everybody, whether they go to college or not, have a similar experience where they have a level of safe adulthood that they can play
Mm-hmm.
in and gradually learn how to transition to adults. We lack in this particular society rites of passage that are meaningful
Mhm.
enough that give people the tools they need to deal with the world. And so I think there's, but that's yet another conversation.
For sure. I'm down to have that conversation with
Yeah, well, yes, we gotta have it.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Coach.
When you say coach, I think mentor,
Mm-hmm.
because we try and create coach mentors in the program. There's a value in the word coach, because like so many people are like, I couldn't get him to clean his room, but then his coach told him to clean his room. So he started cleaning his room,
Oops.
right? Like, but I think if you take the value of that word coach and you add mentor to it, the impact that you can have on a young person's life is meaningful, because we say coach, when you say that word by itself, it's like a short term relationship. Hey, I got you for this season. And then, you move on to everything. When soccer season's over, then I'll see you next soccer season, right? But if you are really trying to move the needle, you use coach and mentor, and a mentor relationship is usually a more long term relationship. And if you put those two things together, you can have a very impactful thing happen with a young person.
Fatherhood.
Probably the most important thing to me. So I would say importance. Being a good father was always super important to me. I had a good, strong mother who also did father role. She also put me in the place with, whether it was my uncles or some of my friends' dads or whatever, or even my grandpa. I refer back to sitting around with them and they were just talking trash or whatever, and I would just listen. And if you listen to what the old head said, then that helps you in your future. Like, there's like a wealth of knowledge that's there. But I think when I think of fatherhood, I think about the importance of that in the life of, you know, case in point, my own daughter. We're obviously not the same gender, but the value that I add just being in her life, it's helped shape who she is today.
Discipline.
Mm, no excuses. Like,
Nice.
like you got to have a
That
level
where
of
just do
discipline.
it comes from?
I don't
Just
know.
do it.
Yeah, yeah. But you
Don't
have
make
to, yeah,
excuses. Get to it.
yeah. You have to stick to it. And, a lot of things you're going to do are not going to be easy, because if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like Les Brown or somebody said, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. But if you do what is hard, your life will become easier.
Hmm.
So, I played soccer, but I did not like to run,
Mm-hmm.
and at some of my professional practices, we started with a 4 mile run.
Yikes.
That's how we
That's
started practice.
before practice
Yeah,
really got
yeah,
heated
yeah,
up.
yeah.
That's your warm
And
up.
you had to
Okay.
be, yeah. So you had to be disciplined to do it, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you had to be disciplined to not whine about it, right? Like,
Yeah, because nobody wants to hear that.
nobody wants to hear that, So I think, with discipline, you have to give no excuses, and did I want to did I want to go to bed at certain times? Maybe not. Did I want to not go to this party or go to this, on this vacation, or, even in certain playing sports and stuff like that? Like I missed holidays and things because we were playing or traveling. So you had to be disciplined in order to do that, and just know that what you were doing, whether it's being up late writing a grant or hashing through a conversation over budget and what gets cut and what gets to be kept, uh, what relationships that you keep. If you don't have discipline, you can be really scattered and all over the place, or you don't find the right things that you stand for.
Islanders.
So that was like the seed setter. So that was like the last team that I played for. But it started as I got older, it started to let me know that, like, this body does not hold up forever. Better be setting up some backup plans to when you're not there to be at your peak when you were, in your 20s or whatever. So it set a lot of seeds for me in terms of looking because when we'd be on the bus or, traveling on a plane, those types of things, I was thinking about what connections were in other cities and what other programs were like the one that I wanted to create that were in some of those cities. So, there were times when I would go and visit other programs when we were in those cities, when we had our downtime. I was like, oh, that's good. They're doing something great here. And I wrote that down. I was like, oh, they're doing something great. I wrote that down. So it was pretty cool. So that was like the seed setter.
I like that. Success.
Got to be ongoing. And success has to be success in the little things over and over and over again. Because again, MJ or any of these other great sports people, they didn't, or great people just in general, they didn't just do one thing. They're not like a one-hit wonder. They were good at the little things consistently. I remember listening to someone talk about how when Michael Jordan won the scoring title, most of the time he only made one more basket than whoever finished second. So he can be considered the greatest of all time in terms of basketball, but like a lot of times he only made one more basket more than the quote unquote next best person.
So if he had slipped up for just a minute, it wouldn't have been him.
Mm-hmm.
If he had let up just a bit,
yeah,
he might have been third, fourth, fifth.
Yeah.
And it says a lot.
When you look at what we consider the most successful people, they do the little things very well, often, and are super consistent.
Beautifully said. JT Dorsey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me for KeyBard today. Is there anything else you want to say to the listeners?
I just want people to know that if it's in your heart to help, find a way to do it. There's a lot of people out here that are in need. There's a lot of people that are out here hurting. And sometimes they just need an ear. They might just need a hug. They might just need a high five. And if you find the most valuable thing you can give to anybody is your time, because you can't get that back. You can give them money and they can lose it, and you can give them more money. You can get the money back. But until some really smart person figures out how to give back time to people, it's your most valuable commodity. So if there's room in your schedules or in your lives to give time to certain things, especially with people in need, I just hope that people find it in their hearts to do that.
Beautifully said. Thank you, JT.
Thank you.
All right. This is KeyBard. I'm Tembi or Thembi. You know that. Until next time. KeyBard is produced, directed, and hosted by Tembi Duncan. Theme music produced by Psycho Sid. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, follow, leave a review, or give us a 5-star rating. Your support helps the show reach more listeners, and it means the world to me. Thank you for listening.